Hello my fellow gamers and welcome once again to Paraphilosophy of Videos. Today I'm back to City Skylines and the city of Bedrock in the Let's Play Road to 1 Million Population on the hard mode. If you like this video, hit the like button below and leave a comment about what would you like to see more of on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Now, going back to the previous episode, I told you that I was going to develop this area over here, and this is how far I have gotten so far. I've called this District Dystopian Vision, as this is one of the comments, more funnier comments on the Reddit that I got about the city, so I chose this name for this district. I am now up to 577 population, and I have kept using the old setup when it comes to the zoning. You can see that I'm using industry, then a double line of commercial, offices, residential, again offices, commercial, industry, and so forth and so on. I've used somewhere less commercial, somewhere less offices, somewhere less industry, depending on the current flow of the jobs and the import-export. Now, because industry takes so many products to actually create goods and products need to be moved, and that requires vehicles, and I'm already at the vehicle limit, I'm going to do my best to actually reduce the amount of industry and use the policy that actually doubles production of goods instead of those additional buildings. So I'm going to use industrial space planning on these areas that aren't already using it in order to increase the amount of goods and not create so much industry, because like I said, of the fact that that will just make so many more products being imported. This policy doesn't actually increase the total amount of imports, only new buildings increase the total amount of imports, which means more traffic is designated to trucks importing and less for city services, sims, and so forth. So I'm going to do it this way in order to increase the amount of jobs. Then I'm going to use more offices instead of those industry buildings. So these two lines of industry are going to be maybe even removed, but definitely I'm going to stop making them. Also, around the rest of the city, I'm probably going to change some of the industry over to the offices for this reason. When it comes to terraforming, yeah, I got a little bit overzealous because I decided to move all of my sewage from the coastline over here. So I made two earth dikes, I think you could call them earth dikes over here, and I tried to miss the shipping lane because the shipping lane goes through here, so I built the dikes here and here. I have two for the reason that I'm going to probably need a second one to actually make water towers on, and over here I'm just going to be dumping the sewage, and hopefully this should prove enough space for all these sewage water treatment plants up to the 1 million population. I've also made sure to raise up the shoreline all the way through here because I've been playing with water so much, and water is pretty devastating if it gets into the city. I've raised up the shoreline all over the place. Additionally, I have a landscape these entire zones here so that I'm going to be able to develop straight zones and buildings over here. I haven't yet bought out these last 3 squares here, which I'm also going to have to flatten in order to provide enough space for regular zoning. And when I talk about flattening, I've flattened the entire mountain completely. You can see the cutting here edge between the old mountain and the new landscape area here, and I flattened it very nicely compared to the previous part. When you recall that there was a hill here too, and it took a very bad zoning for it, and that is why I flattened these areas out to get very nice zoning and to be able to put as many population as I can here. I've continued placing these cargo train terminals because freight does need to flow. There's one over here as well, and there is probably going to be a third by the time I get over here. I was thinking of what to do with this area here. I could have used it to gain water, but like I said, I'm moving on to water towers. So I'm probably going to actually make this a land area instead of a sea area. It's going to be looking a bit weird cut off like this, but I do need the space for it. And if you see that this area here, it took about 1.5 of these squares to actually get around 70,000 population, and I'm guessing that by the time I finish fully this last part here, I'm gonna have 600,000 population. So it takes about 1.5 square for about 100,000 population. Counting that way, I can get another 200,000 population here and probably another 200,000 population here. And if I do reach 600,000 here, another 200,000 here, another 2,100 here, that would make for a million. Now, the water requirement is huge. If you look over here, water consumption is currently almost 7 million cubic meters of water per week. That means that by the time I get to 1 million, it's probably going to be around 13 or even 14 cubic meters of water per week. This isn't going to be possible to supply with water pumping stations, as I've already pretty much gone to the point where this river is gonna dry up if I continue placing these water pumping stations here. And this river, I made it dry out once, and that is why I've gone down to just this many water pipes, and I don't wish to allow for this river to actually drain again, especially considering the fact that the sewage draining centers are no longer here, and these ships wouldn't have any water to float on. I mean, these guys would drop some of the water that would go over here, but then that would just mean that I would reverse the flow of the rivers, and this would then hit another flow coming from this lake, so there would just be a pile up of sewage here, and I don't want to allow that. When it comes to the way I've built roads on this area, I've added this highway here that goes from the edge of the map, just services this district, allowing vehicles to get onto it. But when vehicles need to get off of the highway and get into this area, they actually use the ramps going into these areas above the highway, and then using the underneath roads to actually get into this part of the city, which isn't too big of an issue. There's only a car pile up when they actually start inhabiting a new area here, when I build around 50 to 100 new buildings, and then there's a little pile up here that makes a lot of noise here on this road, but it clears up fast as they move in. When it comes to the health services, I am actually trying to use as many of these hospitals as necessary, because sometimes my health capacity of the medical center is filled out completely, and that means that the hospitals need to jump in and help. They do each cost 500 of upkeep per week, but I think that Tim's health is more important than the cash. And talking about the cash, I have increased my weekly income almost double since the last episode and the time that I had 500,000 population. Now, I would say that this is mostly due to this new area, which I seem to have managed to make far more efficient at generating cash than the previous areas, because just making this area, I've doubled my income, which means that this area must be heck of an effective area to produce cash. Now, if you look at here, I do have 2 cargo train terminals, which aren't cheap, and I do have lots of these parks here, as you can see. Each one of these areas is covered by 4 parks going vertically, so all of these buildings have very good coverage, and I haven't been cheap on fire protection, because I do have fire stations every 4 or so areas, and also police stations as well. So it could be down to just so many buildings at level 3, 5, and 3, depending on which, of course, type of RCI they are. The office buildings do require bus stops to be placed when you're actually wanting to level them up, but they do not actually require the buses. So you can actually just build a bus depot, turn it off, put the bus stops, and that would be enough for the services to cover the offices and offices to level up. You can see that a few buildings here will say buildings need more services to level up, and if we take a look here, there's no stop here. But look what happens when I add a stop here. That increases their happiness, and if we keep looking at it, it might actually level up right in front of us. See, it leveled up. That just goes to show that all you need to do is just place stops, and you don't actually need the buses to be flowing. You just need the stops to be right there, so that the offices are happy for the presence of these bus stops, and that enables them to get their service level up to level required for the buildings themselves to go up to level 3. When it comes to population, like I said, 578,000 currently. The unemployment level is 7%. This is a level at which residential demand starts to drop, and I always have to build first some industry, some commercial areas and offices before I add another residential area. But I seem to see a rising trend as the unemployment keeps rising, and this is pretty much why I have these select areas where I only have offices to try and combat this, because there is a small population discrepancy when I chose this zoning design, that I do have a few more sims than I actually have the jobs for, even though when you look at this overview here, you can see that people employed are actually fewer than the jobs. But this is just the problem of the education level not being right for them. So even though there are 3,000 open jobs, there are 3,000 open jobs with the education levels that these folks do not want to work at, but there is 7% unemployment, which means that there are jobs that they want to work at, but they do not have any open jobs. So that is why there is this discrepancy where you can have unemployment and jobs open at the same time. And this does come up because of the fact that I am using the mod to fill all houses, and that mod is of course required to actually hit the population milestone that I am hoping for, the 1 million population, but it does make sure that there are kind of more sims than they are by default. And when I started doing this let's play, I didn't use this mod because I thought I could reach the 1 million population without it, and that is why when I built my zones like this, I didn't incorporate the fact that there would be a few more sims per building. They used to be a bit lower, something like 19 to 20, 23 households out of 25, and now they're usually 25 out of 25, or well, I'm now clicking on some that aren't, but yeah, mostly there are 25 out of 25 or 26 out of 26, and this means that my previous zoning setup is now not actually correctly managing the jobs, but I do continue making it just like I did before and just adding these office areas from time to time in order to soak up the extra sims that need employment. I'm probably going to do another office area here next to the coastline because of the fact that these grids wouldn't match the coastlines very well. So whenever I see an opportunity for office area, I'm going to build one and just do a district full of jobs for the sims that are unemployed. And they are usually unemployed with their high education, so that is why the offices are a perfect fit. Additionally, I tried using, I need to go into the mods settings here. I tried using the advanced vehicle AI in the city, and when I turned it on, something weird happened. Industries stopped getting their deliveries of products, and then they stopped making goods, and then commercial areas stopped getting goods and they started going abandoned. So I had a wave of abandonment on industry and commercial just because I turned on that advanced AI. For some reason it just wasn't working out for my city, so I've turned it back off just to prevent something like that happening again. But this traffic does flow pretty well because, like I told you in the previous episodes, there just isn't enough vehicles. In the vehicle limit is so low that the city just cannot be strangled by traffic because there's just so many highways, so many roads that the traffic simply cannot fill up these roads and cannot make heavy congestion. And well, that would be all. I think I've covered everything that I needed to talk about in this video. Hopefully in the next video I'm gonna be above 600,000 and I'll see just how many videos more am I going to need to finish this let's play. Thank you all for watching and please stay tuned for more videos.